So let's talk about tables. Now, tables are an awesome way that you can use to organize items on your page. Things like the list of members of your website, or a list of other items on your website, maybe products, services, and all that. Now, um, this is the code we need to create a table. You can see here we have the opening and closing tag of the table. That's the table element here, marking the boundaries of the page. Of the table. It's saying here that we have to start the table here and end here. Now, this particular table has two rows. We have the first row here and then the second row here. Now, the rows are marked with the TR element, which means table row. Then we have the TH element here, which are like the columns in the table row. Now this is the first column and this is another column, but these columns are special kind of columns. They are called TH. That's table header. Now we also have another row here marked by table row element, and then we have two columns again. Now these columns are just the normal columns you have displaying other contents in your table that are not heading contents. So we call this the TD element, which is the table division element. Now our table has two attributes here. We have the width attribute, which is specifying 100%, which means that our table is going to span through 100% width of our screen. And then we have the border. The border specifies whether we want to show the border lines of the table or not. Now if we don't want to show the border lines of the table, we are going to change this to 0. But if you want to show the border lines, you can change it to 1 or any other number depending on the thickness of the border you want to achieve. So I'm going to go straight and copy this code to my page, and I'm going to go straight here. Okay, I have this already here. Okay, I'm just going to paste this. Now I'll save this, and then I'm going to go straight to my, and then I refresh my page, and this I have my table here. So this is what the table looks like. These are the columns for the table header. You can see how the text are appearing, and this is the content. Now assuming you want to add more items into the table, maybe you want to add more rows into the table, all you simply do is to come and add some rows. You can increase this to more rows and copy this and paste. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to go straight into my page here, and then I'm going to add more rows. I just added an additional row to the table here. So I'm going to change this to 3 and this one to 4. So we'll have an additional row with 2 more columns. And now to the browser, and then we'll have that. So that's how to make a table. Now let's look at other uses of tables, some more important uses of tables. Now tables can also be used to create HTML layouts. Now a layout is like, the total organization of the page, how which item goes there or which item goes here. But most importantly, before you create a website, you need to create like what we call a mock-up of that site. You need to create like a wireframe mock-up or any kind of mock-up that shows what the site is going to look like. So you need to like put out a layout of, I want this there and I want that there, and a table is a perfect way of doing that. Some people also use tables to build a full website. They build all their layouts with a website, but that's not really recommended. But you can use the table to an extent to build some layouts on your page. So now let's look at this layout we have here. We're going to try to use our table, the table codes, to create this kind of layout. Here I have a layout of 3 rows, and we have the middle row here which has 2 columns, and also specified some things that we can also look out for. We need to give this row, for instance, a width of 800 pixels and a height of 150 pixels, and we also have the dimensions for all the sections of the layout. Now this is the code that I've made to be able to achieve all the things we've mentioned here. So let's look at it very closely. We have 3 rows here. This is the first row, and that's the first row here, and it has a width of 800 pixels and height of 150 pixels, and that's the width here, and that's the height here. And I also added some background color, and I also mentioned a column span. I will describe this in a bit. Now let's look at the second row. The second row has 2 columns, and that's what we have here. This is the second row. These are the 2 columns. This is the first column and the second column, and these are the dimensions, and they also have a background color of gray. Now this is the last row with the dimensions as well, and the column span. Now you may be wondering, what is this column span doing here? Now this column span is to tell you that we need to balance the columns in the table. This column here is 2, and other rows have 1 column. So we need to tell the HTML to stretch this column over to cover the areas covered by the 2 columns. That's the meaning of the col span. That's why we have col span 2 here. Had it been we have 3 columns here, then this will be col span 3, and so on. That's how to merge columns actually using the HTML codes. So I'm going to copy this code here, and then I'm going to go over to my HTML document here, and then I'm going to place this with my table code, and then save it up, and then I'm going to go to the browser and refresh, and that's what we'll have. Okay, now table, like I said before, is not really an awesome way to create layouts. The actual thing you need to use to create layouts when you start building an actual website is called divs. Now divs are also known as division, so they are the recommended way to create layouts on your page. So let's see how we can use div elements to create our page. Now we're going to create the same layouts that we did with our tables. I'm going to create the same layout using divs this time. So let's look at the code that can do that. So this is our div codes. Here I've put a wrapper div here from here to here, just to serve like our table element. So it starts here just to mark the boundaries of the whole thing. So we start, I called it a wrapper div. I just gave it a class attribute here. A class attribute is something we use to name our elements so that we can identify it later using some styling. Okay, we're going to talk more about that later. Now this serves as the first column or the first row of our table, and I've put all the dimensions here, but this time I used a style attribute to do the dimension, and this is how to do a basic styling, and we call this kind of styling inline styling. So the other kinds of styling we're going to learn about, the cascading style sheet and the internal styling, will come later, but just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to explain what's going on here. So this is a style attribute, and it houses all your style rules here. So this is a style rule explaining that we have a width of 800 pixels, and then we have a height of 150 pixels, a margin of 1 pixel, a background color of gray, and the left float. The left float is just to help me to balance up the divs so that they can stay together and stay tight the way they're supposed to do. So I want you to study this code later on your own, and you can ask questions after watching the video. I can copy this code, and then I'm going to place it right here, and then I'll save it up, and then go back to my browser, and then I refresh, Now this is the same table, but now it's made up of divs. So this is the same layout, but now made up of divs. So to convince you that this is actually not our table code, I'm going to go back here and probably change some colors. Maybe the color of the first row I can change it to green, and maybe I can change one of the columns in the middle row. I can change it to crimson, for instance, and then save it up. Then go back here and you can see. All right, so back to our training now. Basically, the next thing we'll need to do, but that will be in the next video, we're going to talk about HTML5. And what is HTML5? HTML5 is the latest version of HTML that is currently being used globally. So in our next video, we're going to be talking about HTML5, and also we're going to be talking about other things like cascading styling and the styling CSS animations and all that. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching this video. You can also find the video in our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website www.candlewoodng.com and watch more videos or more tutorials over there. Thank you very much.